the complexity of giving people money is vastly underestimated.
Agreed.
Because it raises a lot of questions that we should have been asking for a long time on everything else. So what happens when you say, well, we're just going to give a lot of people money? They say, well, how do you know it's the right people? Great question. That's called targeting in the literature, but it applies to everything. If I was giving people sheep, how do you know it's the right people?
You would definitely need to make sure you were giving a sheep to the right person. If you gave the wrong person a sheep, the things would go poorly for both the sheep and, maybe the person.
Yeah, I didn't bring a sheep for you today. I'm sorry, Andrew.
That's totally fine. I would have been one of the wrong people.
So you've got the targeting problem, right? So that's problem one. Second problem, people say, well, how do you know there's not fraud? If you're giving people money, surely people are going to try to steal it. And the answer is they do. And you have to build systems for that. But you know what? That's true of every development program and every social program. And one of my favorite answers to that is, yeah, but cash is really valuable. Wait a second. So we're going to give people things that are not valuable lest other people try to defraud the system. That logic doesn't make sense. So how do you deal with fraud? How do you make sure you're not causing issues in the community of any sort, right? You don't want to be invoking domestic violence. As it turns out, cash reduces domestic violence.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you're not altering power. You have to be very thoughtful about that. And then you have to be very aware of both local and national political structures. Like, people get worried. Are you giving to one ethnic group over another? Are you trying to affect the next election? And those are the things you need to be really thoughtful about. We do not try to affect the next elections.
That's the difference between you and me, Michael.
Well, cash is very popular from a government standpoint.
A majority of people are for it here in America now, happily. When I got started, the approval rate for universal basic income was, I think, something like 24%. It was not high, and now last I checked, it was like 56%.
It's incredible what's happened over the last 2 years, and you obviously played a central role in that. But I think people's perception.
Well, you played a central role in helping me know that it's real and actionable. So Rohit shows up in Kenya in the mid 2000s and starts gathering phone numbers, and then he comes back and is like, "Okay, guys, I got some phone numbers." So then you raised some money and started sending it to people?
I repeated the endeavor shortly thereafter.
So you went too, and you were like, we need more phone numbers. It's my turn.
Yeah, and I very distinctly walking around the camp, asking people for their number. A lot of people saying no. Like, are you part of the Illuminati? No one's ever given me something for free. What are you going to ask me for? I just don't trust you. You spend a lot of time, and we did that. One of my favorite memories of that trip was there was a little store outside the area, and it was empty. It was completely abandoned. And you could imagine going in and saying, well, what are we going to give people cash for? There's nothing to buy here. There's no market. There's no stores. You gave people money. Guess what? The store started to fill up because it made sense for the shopkeeper to go back to buy inventory and start selling things. And that you see in the research since, which is you actually not only have an impact on the people that get cash, but on those that don't get cash and the broader economy.
And there's a very important point there, which is that that the market will seek out people that have the resources. If you're not able to participate in the market, then you go to the town. You're like, well, there's nothing going on here. But if all of a sudden the people in that town had money, then there'd be a business that's serving them. Or they'd start it themselves because they'd look up and say, wait a minute, it's like we need a shop here, and like I can do that. And then it starts as like a basic food stand and everything else.
Markets respond, and they respond quickly. And surely there are places where that may not be the case because you're so far off the grid.
I mean, if it's working in Kenya, it's working. It's gonna work.
I mean, we're doing this in Liberia. Right?
Yeah, you can do it in very tough places, and
Liberia doesn't even print their own money. They have to get it brought in on boats. There was really no mobile money infrastructure in Liberia when we got started. There's a rainy season which cuts off large parts of the country
so
for
at
half
this
the
point
year.
Now, how many countries have you been to?
So 11 countries.
11 countries? That's so fun. So you and the band of grad students then started sending small sums to people. What was like the total number of people you were sending money to in that first?
Gosh, I
first
must
mini
have
trial?
spent a whopping $5,000. So
Still,
I forget how much money we.
I mean, it's still legit, especially after it translates to Kenya. I mean, like, it'd be enormously impactful. I'm sure when people first
Yeah.
started getting money, they were freaking out.
Oh yeah. And that's what we did. Then we tried to experiment with the operations, right? Say, okay, can I just hire the village elder and ask him to pick the people and give it out? Well, that probably didn't work so well.
Yeah,
because
that would have problems.
he picks his friends and family. Yeah, that one was obvious in retrospect. Can we pay M-Pesa agents? Because they're already going around on motorbikes delivering SIM cards and things. Can they be part of this? Well, that worked okay. And how do you start to put the checks and balances in place to build out this robust cash distribution infrastructure? And that's what we did. And we've evolved a lot a decade later.
Well, so then who's the first investor or supporter that recognizes that what you're doing is profound and says, you know what, instead of you just doing bake sales and like getting a few $100 from your friends, we're gonna give you this. Like who is the first to figure it out?
Yeah, so it was a friend named Vivek, who I have to give credit for. He had his first finance job and said, this is great. Like, I want to fund some of this, and gave us a bit more money and said, see if we can grow this. We then launched a research project because we were academics. And before scaling anything, we wanted to know that exactly what we were doing also worked. Yes, we had evidence on cash, but we did not yet have evidence on us. And we wanted to build that. So we did our first research project, used some research funds for that.
Too much research, man. Should have
I,
just gone and been like, we know this works. Like, guns blazing.
I hear you.
Go with the money. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it helped. It helped. And it helped because there were a lot of people that wanted to engage. And that's what was nice. So the first big check that we got, well, there are two. One was Unorthodox Philanthropy and the Lampert family, which is an incredible story. Because he said, we had a big stack of applications. It's one of these programs where you submit a page or two on
Wow,
what your
that
big idea
worked?
is. And it was a few $1,000s at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he'll tell the story. He remembers someone pulling out the stack and saying, this is the worst application I've ever seen. This goes against everything we do in the sector, and we cannot fund this. Mark, being Mark, said, what is that one? That one was Give Directly. So that was the next step. And then once we had run the research, we had gone over to see google.org. And they said, at some level, we don't care what you're doing. Let's show me the data. Let's engage at the data level. And to their credit, they engaged in the data. And they said, this is really good. And then challenged us to think bigger. I remember going in, I forget what we were asking. Maybe it was $100,000, $200,000. At $200,000, what if we gave you a few $1 million? Could you open a new country? Could you expand this? Because this could be $1 billion, $2 billion to the poor.